that's a little bit more granular when it comes to guidelines, to processes, to procedures. And it's very interactive in the sense that we've embedded videos like the ones that you saw a few moments ago, so that I think it becomes a living, breathing guide or document for you to use as an overview for your behavior every day. Because you know what? There's no way for us to quantify things that occur every day. This doggone code of ethics would be 19,000 pages long if we needed to. It looked like the tax code. But it gives you broad assurance, broad guidance that allows you to go in the right direction. And again, if you have any specifics, contact us. All right? We've wrapped this thing in the personal pronoun of I, because we want you to buy into our behaviors in the sense that you believe, I protect, I support. Okay? So again, it's very inviting. It's something that you should take a look at, and it's something that you'll train and attest to every year. Now, the bottom line for our code of ethics is we want you to do the right thing when no one's watching, and especially when they are. That's very elemental. We don't want to get wrapped around the axle on fancy words and concepts. We talk about fraud and abuse. We talk about what fraud is. It's knowingly submitting false information in a business or a medical environment or in a process. Abuse deals with business practices that don't have workflows, that don't have policies or procedures, that the government really hangs us up oftentimes on fraud and abuse types of issues. And certainly within the industry, that's where they go after entities such as ours. False Claims Act, for instance, is covered in our Code of Ethics. In other words, we do not bill the government or any state entity, or for anybody, for that particular matter, for bills or services that we did not do. We want to be accurate in those claim submittals as well, because even the slip of one digit, let's say a number had to be a 4 and someone inadvertently pressed a 5 on their keypad, submitted that claim for payment. That right then and there is a false claim. And the government, when they're prosecuting us for those particular events, don't need to prove intent. We can't say to them, you know what, Ben had a bad day. He awfully meant it to be a 5, but it was a 4. He just slipped up on the keypad. No, they don't count it that way. Close enough is not good enough for the government. It has to be accurate. That's another area where they can hang us up for false claims. The anti-kickback statute is basically influence buying and peddling, and we certainly don't do that here. Now, if in fact someone, let's say a drug rep, shows up in your office with coffee or pumpkin latte or a muffin or a bagel, we're going to have a problem with that. The problem is in the sense that you don't let us know so that we can come and have some of that too. Okay? Not a big deal. We get a lot of people who call us and say, oh my God, there's a pharmaceutical rep here with some donuts. Well, damn it, have them. Have them. It's not a big deal. Now, if that drug rep wants to send you to Las Vegas and put you up, in, the Mandalay Bay, and then, they want to influence however you practice your medicine, or let's say a purchase for your department, we're going to have a problem with that. And that happens. It does happen. Because people want you to buy their services, buy their goods. Because you are in an area where influence is very important, particularly as a provider. Okay? HIPAA. Does everyone know about HIPAA? Is everyone familiar with HIPAA? It's basically you're involving yourself or about to involve yourself either in records or visually of people who come here at the hospital. And what we do is we protect what we collect. And we tell our folks that unless you have a need to know, you have no business to be in a patient's records. Okay? A need-to-know basis only. And oftentimes we get folks, and they could be your neighbors. They could be your minister. They could be your ex-wife, your ex-husband. If you see them here, we don't want you to talk about it outside these walls. Okay? That's privacy. That's their right to know. Okay? Now, PHI, protected health information, can take many forms. It could be a social security number. It could be date of birth. It could be payment information. So we need you to involve yourself with that information and keep it private and confidential. And you've already agreed to that by virtue of the confidentiality agreement that you signed when you came here. Most likely this morning in all that paperwork that you signed. Again, a need-to-know basis only. And we've had to have some very hard conversations with employees who take it upon themselves to get in and look at records that they're not directly involved with. And sadly, some employees have to leave the organization because of it. And in the cases of nurses or medical practitioners, it could be the loss of their licenses. So again, I got to tell you, and this is a big area that we have hard conversations with, if you have that itch to screw around in somebody's records, call me and let me scratch it for you, okay? Really, I'm here to help you. I really am. Training. Kelly mentioned training earlier. Just know that, you got to do this stuff, man. You just have to. A lot of it's online. But think of it in these terms. We're paying you to be here. We can only pay you when you're training, so you're being paid to train, okay? Now, you've come at a great time in the sense that we're in the middle of training for our corporate integrity agreement requirement every year. So we have live training for a general compliance training that's part of your particular training requirement. Matter of fact, if you're a Raleigh employee or an employee for no matter where you work, whether it's in Cary or whether it's in Garner or Apex, this Thursday at noon, we're going to have a live general compliance training that will give you credit for that dry online training that you're about ready to endure. And I think the benefit to that live training, and this is just me, is that we feed you too when you come. We'll give you lunch, and we do a darn good dessert too. All right? So if you come to the live training, don't worry about signing up online. Just show up. We'll take care of that then. All right? Come, get fed, get happy. We have a good time. All right? Yes?
For HIPAA,
yep.
can you look at your own records?
No. That's when I turn Ben loose on you. And he's going to come scream at you. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry to put you on the spot, pal. You do have the ability to look at your own medical charts by a nice and nifty little process called My Charts. And Kelly can talk about that a little bit later on. But you do not have the right to look at your medical records. But good question. Thank you very much. Our corporate integrity agreement, Susan referenced this earlier. This is where we got into trouble several years ago by billing Medicare on 2-day stays. Now, I can tell you that the government is far than clear on how we're to bill them for Medicare, Medicaid, or any other program, even the state. But really, this is when a new employee really made their mark with WakeMed. They came in, they saw how we were billing 2-day stays. It was different than what they were used to, and that's when they contributed to the pot. And they said, you know what? We billed this differently at the place that I came from. I don't think we're doing it right. She took it right to her manager. Her manager looked at it. The logic was sound. It made sense. She kicked it up to her management and said, I think we got a problem here. So we talked to the government. They came in, they did an audit, and they agreed. Okay? They gave us a corporate integrity agreement that cost WakeMed, a not-for-profit entity, by the way, to the tune of $8 million, and put us under a corporate integrity agreement for 5 years. That involves a lot of self-auditing. It involved scrupulous review of our billing practices, an area of concern for us, because we'd filed false claims based on our interpretation of how we're to bill the government. Okay? Again, a very foggy, nebulous area. So we're getting ready to come out of our CIA. We're going to do that in December. So a lot of the auditing, a lot of the monitoring will go away, but a lot of it will remain. But a lot of the training will go away. It'll just take another form. But this is one area where we got into trouble, but it really was, I think, a good time for us. And I think a moral check for the organization where an employee raised their hand, and while it may have cost us $8 million and threw us through, a lot of issues in the last 5 years, it was the right thing to do. Again, another example of, I think, the character of the employees that work here. Our helpline information, you're going to see posters throughout it. There are many posters here that you should take home with you. This is a 1-800 number that if you have any questions at any time and you don't feel comfortable speaking to someone about it, you can either call this number anonymously or not. It's a 1-800 number. available to you 24/7, 365 days a year. They'll contact us. We'll get back in touch with you, and we can solve the particular question that you have or answer your concern. Okay? This is an indicator when the Department of Justice comes in. They'll say, how many calls are you getting on your helpline? And let's say our answer is 40 calls per year. That's not really a good answer for the government. They want hundreds of calls to come in because that's an indicator to them stating that there's an open culture, open communication between employees and management. And I can tell you that our call volume is going up. We had close to 200 calls last year. I think we're going to be up to 300, maybe 400 this year. That's a good thing. When I was at Abbott in the Chicago area, we had 800 calls a year, and that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Let me just back up real quick. That's all of our contact information. That's our leadership. I'm at the bottom. My name, again, is Gary Ernst, or my extension is 06235. Feel free to call me at any time. I'll answer any questions that you have. I take 5 or 6 calls per day from employees about just little stuff. Certainly, I'm there working for you. Now, to close out my presentation, does anyone know who Kid President is? Yeah? Yeah? I see head shakes up. No? Okay. Thumbnail sketch, and I didn't know him either for the longest time. Very intriguing young man. This is an earlier version of a video that he did. It's a pep talk. Backstory on him is that both he and his sister were orphaned as infants. I think learning disabilities, physical disabilities, that kind of thing. This young man and his sister were subsequently adopted by a great family, and I think they live in Wisconsin, if memory serves. I'm not sure. Maybe Indiana, Midwest. But this young man sticks out videos a lot, just on stuff. And for those of you who are familiar with him, you will probably already know this. But if not, welcome to Kid President. Let's see where the audience participation part comes in. Come on in. Let's jump. Dance. That's how I'm going to close my segment. It's a pep talk, like I said. Welcome to Awesome. Welcome to a great team. It's great to have you on. If you have any questions, feel free to call me again. Gary Ernster, 06235. I'm there, and I work for you. All right? Have a great day. Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. So next up, we have Kenneth Murray. Kenneth is from our Kaizen Promotion Office. And Susan, boy, she set y'all up today because she talked about all the aspirational goals. But Kenneth covers the WakeMed to Excellence, as she mentioned, which is going to focus on quality, value, leader, and financial health. So welcome, Kenneth.
Good morning. I don't think any groups ever applauded before I started, and seldom do I get applause when I'm done. Wow. Well, good morning and welcome to WakeMed. Happy to talk with you this morning and explain a little bit more about what our WakeMed to Excellence program looks like and answer any of your questions, or at least set you up to go out and ask others lots of questions, because that would be an ultimate achievement here, is if you're curious enough to ask others what they know about it. So I'm glad to hear that Susan gave a preview of the aspirational goals. What I want to talk about is how the WakeMed to Excellence is intended to support those goals and help us achieve the objectives we've set. So a lot of times when you see presentations, and the pyramid is one of the early slides, people will circle which aspirational goal they're working on, or which aspirational goal their effort is trying to improve. I like to take credit for the entire foundation when I talk about the WakeMed to Excellence, because it's really everything that we do to support those goals. So it becomes the foundational elements of improvement, of how we work together, how we behave. And that's what I want to talk about. The WakeMed to Excellence, as you see here in the foundation expanded, is really made up of two components. It's something we call tenets, which are performance improvement concepts, and then it's also made up of behaviors. And the behaviors are somewhat unique in how we've represented this, because we've shown that in this diagram, how we behave and how we act to one another and to our patients and their families is as significant as what we do. And so we wanted to really emphasize that having good processes, good efficient workflows and things like that are of a great benefit, but they really don't do much for the overall service we provide and to people's experience unless we have good communication, good teamwork, and share respect for one another. And that's what the two-component system is really intended to do, is bring those two ideas together. So when we set out to create a new program about 3 years ago, we were already doing things to improve, as many organizations are, but we really wanted to emphasize in a new way what we were about. And so a couple of things that we did was we re-emphasized that in our organization we want the patient to be first. And if you look at the pyramid, the patient is at the top for a reason. That we want to make sure that we focus on what is best and most important for the patients that seek our care. And so one of the philosophies that we embraced is we will always put the patient first. And many times now, you'll hear discussions where people will ask, is that idea or is that process really putting the patient at the top? And that's become a little bit of a focal point and a call to question as we challenge ideas. We've also wanted to re-emphasize that quality and patient safety have to be one of our key priorities. Without quality and patient safety, our financial performance does not matter. In fact, without quality and patient safety, our financial performance suffers. And so we've decided that we will drive to improve quality and patient safety with the assumption that's proven in many, many organizations that financial health is derived from good quality and high patient safety standards. That's one reason you see the financial performance here listed last, is because it's intended not to be the primary focus. The third philosophy is that we would engage all employees, because The staff that do the work are the ones that most often know how to improve the work. And we've often faced programs and efforts where improvement ideas are developed or created in a conference room without any real consideration for how it works out where the work is done. And so the goal here is to engage employees to come up with solutions to their problems. We sometimes refer to those as the rocks in your shoes. How can we solve problems and remove the rocks in your shoes? Those little things that are annoying and get in our way and prevent us from doing our best work. And then patient satisfaction, as well as employee satisfaction, is also on our list of priorities for WakeMed Excellence to ensure that we are engaging people in the most effective way and also using our staff's mental and creative abilities as much as we use our staff's physical abilities to do the work. Because the ideas are perhaps more valuable than the actual physical work that anyone does. So to contrast where we want to go from and where we want to go to, I share this slide, and I'll emphasize a couple of bullets here because I think it's important that we recognize that the transition we're trying to make is not an easy one. Traditionally, healthcare has had certain perspectives on roles, functions, and things like that, and we're really trying to challenge those. We're doing it with a partner who I'll share in just a second, but we adopted this from their own journey as they transformed their organization. One of the first elements that we have tried to emphasize is that we need to move from an organization that puts the provider first and prioritizes their efficiency, their workflow over anyone else's, to an organization that keeps the patient as the #1 priority and puts forth their benefit as being the primary focus. And that's a challenge to the historical way of delivering health care. The next that I'll point out is that waiting is good. Hospitals, doctors' offices are all designed with waiting rooms with the expectation that patients will wait and that there's a reason that they should wait. Sometimes we make people wait for weeks for appointments when we're full or busy. And we want to adopt a new perspective that waiting is bad, and that anytime we can eliminate waiting, we provide better services and better care for patients. And so we should work toward ways to deliver care without unnecessary delays. One of the other bullets that I want to focus on and emphasize is this idea of reducing cost. Typically, most organizations have focused on how can we eliminate costs to be more profitable and to ensure financial health. We want to transition not from eliminating cost, but to eliminating waste. A study that came out from the Institute of Medicine in 2007 said that there was $400 billion worth of waste in healthcare every year. So imagine if we eliminated just a fraction of that, what impact that would have on our organization and on healthcare in general to be able to provide other services. So the goal is not to eliminate cost, which can sometimes imply eliminating needed or necessary services or resources, but to looking at those things that don't actually contribute to good patient care and to operations, but that we do simply because no one has worked hard to eliminate it. Sometimes the examples of this are multiple imaging studies unnecessarily. Sometimes it includes things that are done twice, like double documentation and those types of things that are purely waste because it's unnecessary. And so we want to eliminate waste, not eliminate cost necessarily. And then finally, the last bullet here doesn't really stand on its own, so I like to explain it. Typically, healthcare has moved very slowly in terms of embracing change and adopting new ideas. And the perception has been that we have plenty of time to get this right. We can wait on others to pave a path that we can follow. And we want to adopt a mentality that we need to be flexible, and we need to be the ones paving the path, looking for better ways to do things, more efficient processes, better ways to deliver care. And to do that, we need to have a sense of urgency. We need to behave as if we don't have time to wait on somebody else to figure it out. We need to do it ourselves. And so the work that we're doing is really pushing that by embracing ideas of rapid change. So we've partnered in this endeavor with a healthcare system in Seattle. They're known as the Virginia Mason Medical Center, and they have 2 hospitals. They are slightly smaller than us. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of them, but in quality and patient safety circles, they are the leader. They are the ones that are consistently ranked among the top hospitals in the country, as you can see from some of the awards that they receive. And every year when a new list of award comes out, I check to make sure they're still on the list, and they are. But what we've done with them is we've partnered with them that they would coach us on how to adopt the same type of culture that they have done, which follows those principles I've already talked about. And so we're about to the end of our original engagement with them, and we've trained upwards of 100 leaders in how to lead an organization. We've trained more than 20 people to lead events, and we've embarked on improvement activities that have included nearly 1,000 of our workforce in different ways to eliminate waste, to make processes more efficient. And so this has not been a consulting agreement. This has been more of a coaching agreement where we've learned to do this on our own. And that's what we'll be doing in the future. This entire effort is led by a guiding task force, which is made up of our executive leadership team and physician leaders, where they are prioritizing the work and where we will focus and then where we will expand. And right now we're focused on a couple of value streams that we felt would be key areas to demonstrate improvement, had lots of opportunities, and a place where many, many people would be able to get involved early. And so you'll hear and see a lot of work that's gone on around our WakeMed physician practices, around surgical services, around our emergency services, and our pharmacy services. And those areas are now starting to cross over into things like inpatient discharge planning, crossing over into areas like IS and other places where we're making improvements as well. And then we have multiple activities going on outside of these 4 value streams by individuals that have been exposed to the work and are ready to do some of it on their own. So with this, we've introduced some new vocabulary words, and so we like to share kind of what the meaning of those is, because it implies a different approach. One of those is nemawashi. And nemawashi is a Japanese term, and as many of these are, because the concepts related to this improvement work have been adopted to healthcare from Toyota, who really pioneered some of the most efficient, highest quality manufacturing processes. And nemawashi is a gardening term in Japanese that means before you plant a garden, you would go out and you would prepare the soil. You would break it up, you might add fertilizer, add things that would make a seed grow. And so used in this context, we want to make sure that before we ask people to do something different, that we actually explain what the purpose is, we help people understand the goals, and that we engage our staff in the why of what we're doing. So to make things ready for the improvement so that it's understood and accepted. Because often, if we understand why we're doing something, it's much easier to change and do something that even we would not want to do if we know it has a positive impact on our patients. Another word here is gemba, and you say that with the letter M sound, even if it's spelled with an N. But that is the place where the work is done. And the emphasis is that when we work on making improvements, we want to go to the gemba, or the place where the work is done, and make sure that the work there is appropriate, that we've engaged the people that are doing the work, and that we've checked to make sure that it makes sense. because often what you discuss in a conference room is not really what goes on in real life. So a lot of times we will ask, has anyone been to the Gemba to check on this, to see what it looks like? And we find many, many things. Like 2 weeks ago, we discovered that housekeeping, through the design of how they clean patient rooms, was walking back and forth across a patient room more than 55 times in the course of cleaning a single room. So they were walking close to 3/4 of a mile in one patient room as they were cleaning. And so we looked at how can we make this more efficient and how can we design that process so that it saves steps and that the staff is not having to work unnecessarily hard to get the work done in the time frame desired. So we were able to reduce that by 25% just within a matter of a few days, and there's lots more opportunities there. But that came from going to the Gemba to see what was actually going on. The next word here I'll emphasize is the word Kaizen. And Kelly mentioned this earlier. It's the name of the department that I represent, the Kaizen Promotion Office. And Kaizen is a two-part word in Japanese. It stands for good change. So most of us are familiar with the word Zen, which really means good. And Kai means change. So it's all about making good change in the organization, things that are better for our patients, better for our staff. And so that's what we want to do, is we want to make this good change something that's a part of our daily work, trying to find opportunities to do things better. And then the last word here is muda, and it winds up just being a fun word to say. It's a Japanese word for waste. And so you hear a lot of people talking about how do we take the muda out of this process. And so it just becomes something of a talking point for people. And you might say, why do we need to use the Japanese words? Part of the reason is because when we use English words, we have connotations associated with them and they don't mean so much to us anymore. So if we learn new words to relate to these concepts, we can all develop a common understanding of them, and it means that we all have an opportunity to learn something new. So we've adopted this, and we've managed to resist feedback that says, let's just use English words to represent this, because we all disagree about what some of those things mean. So let's adopt something new that we can all agree on. As a part of the overall work, we've also implemented some new tools. We have activities that we refer to specifically as waste walks, where we walk around and look for waste that we might be able to prioritize and eliminate. How can we eliminate steps? How can we eliminate wasted supplies? How can we make things more efficient? And sometimes it's as simple as just taking time to look for it, because sometimes we tend to overlook it in our daily work as we're just trying to get things done. We've also adopted a model for the scientific method for improvement, the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle, to help us all work together on improvement so that we know where we can support one another and where we are in that process. And then 5S is a method of workplace organization that we've done a lot of work to standardize, to organize, to improve the appearance and organization of the workplace. Because there have been a number of studies. One of the most interesting ones has actually been repeated to verify its accuracy. But a medical doctor about 7 or 8 years ago did a study and found that nurses spend as much as 1/3 of their time looking for things. And most people would call that waste. If it isn't where you need it when you need it, then the time you spend looking for it is wasteful. And I've yet to have anybody tell me they think that number is too high. But we spend a lot of time looking for things, whether it's equipment or paperwork or supplies. And so 5S is a way to make that more convenient and better organized so that we eliminate some of that unnecessary time spent looking for things. So with this concept of prioritizing the patient, looking at how we can create or eliminate waste, we add this concept of value. We want to add value to the patient's experience. And value is really something that we want to only look at through the patient's eyes. Would the patient consider this experience valuable, this service valuable? And if it has no value, we call that waste. So we want to look at how can we reduce the impact of that or eliminate it altogether if possible. And so looking at it through the patient's eyes gives you a different perspective on whether or not things are valuable or whether they are wasteful. And waiting is a key example. Sometimes we are made more efficient by having patients wait, but the patient is inconvenienced and they receive worse or poor service because of the waits that they experience. We actually had one of our medical leaders at one point say that when he was in medical school, he graduated and he felt like he had really arrived as a provider when there was a 6 to 8 week delay to see him in his office. He felt like he was in demand, and that meant that he was someone that you would wait for. Much like playing golf at a fancy country club, you'd wait weeks to do that, but you could walk onto a community course any day of the week. And so we have to look at what's the patient consider about that and whether that's valuable or wasteful. So to do that and to help us recognize waste, we use a waste wheel, and it spells an acrostic called downtime. If you look at the terms, but it's really intended to just help call our attention to things we might not consider wasteful so that we can look for ways to make improvements in our work. Things like creating defects, things that have to be done twice or redone or corrected, like lab draws where we might mislabel a specimen and have to redraw it, would be considered a defect. I've already mentioned waiting as being a key waste. And we include things that don't need to be done at all. Administrative areas, I refer all the time to reports that they spend time making that no one reads and no one would miss if they stopped doing it. And typically, people recognize there's a lot of that they do, even in administrative areas. The one that I'll point out that's not as widely recognized, but I think is probably the most significant, connects to one of those behaviors on our foundation, which is the respect for people aspect. And the opposite of respect for people is really this idea of employee underutilization. When we don't engage employees to help improve their work, or we ask them to do work that is that they're not trained to do, or work that they does not require their skill set, we're really underutilizing a significant resource in the organization. So we like to identify that as a waste in terms of engaging people in a way that is different perhaps than the work that they're doing, but engaging them in how to change their role, how to make their work better and better for others. And so it's often difficult to see, but with a little bit of effort, you can recognize areas where we are really not utilizing employees to their fullest. And we want to call that a waste so we can really look for ways to make an improvement in that. I mentioned our Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle. This matches the scientific method, and so it's consistent with ideas of research, things like that. And the intent here is that we make purposeful changes, that we plan a test or some sort of a change, and then we study the results to make sure that it was actually effective. We find all the time that we implement changes and no one follows up to see if it was better, and in fact sometimes it's worse, but we don't actually look at the results to decide if we should go back to the old way. And we only fail if we fail to learn. So when we do this, if we find a way that doesn't work, then we should move on to a better way. And this method helps us stay on track to assess whether or not the improvements we make are really having a difference in the way we deliver care. So for you as new employees, we ask you to play a role in this. We want all employees engaged in the Wake Way to Excellence efforts. As I mentioned, we've had close to 1,000 employees so far participate in an improvement event, a 5S activity, conduct a Plan, Do, Study, Act experiment or go on a waste walk. And our goal is over the next 10 years to include everyone in the organization on an ongoing basis to make improvements. So ask what your department is doing to embrace the behaviors and the tenets, and look for ways to get involved. Some people have a natural disposition for organizing, and so it's a great opportunity to include you in 5S activities. And some people have seen ways to do things in other organizations that we've not thought of, and we'd love to hear about that too. Some of the best improvements come from learning from others, so we want you to share those examples if you see them. And then if you have opportunities or you identify something that you think could be done better, talk with your leadership team about doing a PDSA on that to experiment, and then share the results so that others can learn from it, and that we can all improve together, and we don't continue to reinvent the wheel from WakeMed North to Cary to Raleigh campus or wherever that might be. We have resources online. Certainly my department is always available to help coach or consult. We have many trained individuals in leadership positions and in staff positions that can help. We have information about improvements that we've made, including videos where people talk about the changes and the impact that it's had on their work and on their departments. So if you go on the WakeMed web and click on the Wakeway to Excellence logo, it'll take you to a page with videos, with resources and things like that. And certainly feel free to ask anybody in the organization what they know about it, or stop by my office. I'm on the way out the door as you head into the E-Tower. So, are there any questions? Well, thank you very much. Welcome to WakeMed.
Take a 10-minute break. So if y'all will be back in your seats by about 9 after, that'd be great. Thank you.
We do have some teams, yes.
I do content editing right now. And the rest of the day, they have a whole team in the department that sits in as we do the charting and billing.
Yeah.
So if you switch something that's double charged, right? They'll actually call you and say,
oh, okay.
Can you take one away, go back to this, and take this away because you overcharged?
Sure.
Or you didn't do that right. So they eliminate all those double charges right from the beginning.
Wayne Warden is the director of respiratory. He's been in our leadership training. He's not finished it yet, but that's something I'll mention to him to make sure we're taking a look at, especially if somebody else already has a process we're doing.
Over at Lake Baptist, I know you had mentioned with the S word, where y'all are in partnership with them.
Associates, with ECU and Wake Forest.
But I know they do that in respiratory, and that's really nice. Because they had a problem like their charges where we do the postural drainage. They have the manual way and they have the mechanical ways.
Yeah.
And the charges were getting confused. Right. So they revamped those and made it simpler. But they have like 3 people on each shift. That's all they do, so they can keep them monitored live.
Good. I'll mention it to Wayne to see what we're doing about that too. Thank you. Yeah, planning on 2018.
Comfortable running 27.
That something doesn't happen and I have to stop. What year is this?
No, we talked as far as
Kaizen promotion office and make a training space for us so that we can have a single space that doesn't change and that can be used for multiple things. So that'll be nice. So I don't know when that'll happen, but once it does, then we'll be able to work out of a single place. Yeah.
Easy for logistics, storage, and planning.
Oh my goodness. The setup and tear down is just ongoing.
To be continued, right?
Yeah. We just did our second wave of advanced tenant training first half last week. So it's 2 parts, and the first part was last week. So we've got another 8 people on that. Questions that they
Better. That's a good
we had
outcome.
good candidates the first time. Some of them struggled more, and I think this was more obvious.
Good. We're going quick this. We've been having problems with our computers. Okay, if you guys will return to your seats, we're going to go ahead and keep on schedule so that you'll get your full lunch break. I know y'all deserve that. It's a quiet group, so Nicole, you got to jazz them up a little bit. Nicole Porter's here from Patient and Family Experience, so welcome, Nicole.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to New Employee Orientation. So I am with